All right, recording has started, and this is the February 22nd, 2024 Crossplane community meeting. Folks are more than welcome to add themselves to the as the attendees list here on the agenda doc. Feel free to do so. Let's jump on into our content on the agenda doc. Actually, let me do this real quick too. Let me drop a link in the Zoom chat as I typically do to the agenda doc. So if folks aren't already in there, you can hop on in there and add suggestions for any topics that you may want to discuss this evening here. I think we definitely have time. We don't have a super full, it looks a little full, but it's not, I don't think. So yeah, feel free to add some content and any of the topics that are important for y'all to discuss. All right. So we haven't met in almost a month though, actually, because we canceled the last meeting together. So it's been about 4 weeks since we met together, and there's certainly been some big events in the meantime since. So let's take a quick look then. In terms of releases, we got the 1.15 release out since we all met together here last. So this was a major release that we had that had lots of features and lots of focus areas in it. We'll go through a couple details later on in specific agenda topics here, but mostly this is I think folks on the call here are probably aware of this release. This is the news for y'all folks that join into this type of meeting together. But so it's more of a, hey, this is awesome. We got this out. Had a lot of great stuff in it that the community has wanted, and it's moving the project forward. So thanks to everyone for all your efforts and successfully getting another Crossplane release out, right? So the next major release for the project will be a quarter. So we always do them quarterly. It'll be in 3 months, a quarter from now. So early May timeframe is when we'll be expecting to do the 1.16 release. We also went ahead and did a patch release for the 1.14 release branch. I think that it was mostly focused on some bug fixes and security related fixes. So I don't think there's anything major to talk about there, but it went out yesterday, so it's super, super fresh. And then folks on the 1.14 release are more than welcome to go ahead and upgrade to the 0.6 patch release now. All right. So 1.16, that is the next major milestone we're talking about. Early May is the timeline we're looking at there. The community calendar, the release schedule, and all that stuff should be up to date. So no major surprises there. There's a couple things that we know we're going to be focusing on. And then I think this is also a good opportunity to kind of I want to spend more time nurturing and enabling more people to be contributing to the project. So if there are priorities that folks here on this call have, maybe we can chat later on. Feel free to reach out and we can kind of chat about, ways to get involved and to be driving more of those features and those contributions. So let's take a look at, let's look at the roadmap here. So there's a couple impactful things that we're going to be focusing on in 1.16 timeframe. One of them is that, we've certainly talked about it on this call before, and it's been, I think, 2 releases now, 1.14 and 1.15. We started a major investment in improving the developer experience around Crossplane and shifting things left, being able to do validation and testing and iterate local iterations earlier in the cycle on your local laptop, and being able to verify your platform and making sure that it's good before you go ahead and deploy it to a live environment. So we've been continuing to invest in that in 1.14 and 1.15. And we do want to continue that momentum in 1.16 as well. So, there's probably no big surprises there, but continuing to make Crossplane easier to use is a major theme that we're going to continue focusing on. So that's obviously a big roadmap item that we'll be continuing to drive. And then there are a couple of roadmap items here that we're very likely to be focusing on that are around creating a complete picture for being able to create and deploy your platforms. So some folks might have already read some of these proposals from Nick here. And Nick, I'm going to talk about them, but feel free if you want to, interrupt and chat about them yourself. But the idea here is that, if you think about the way that we build platforms today with Crossplane, we've got provider packages, function packages, and then configuration packages as well. So in those configuration packages, you include all of your composite resource definitions. Those are the definitions, the types for your platform API that you want to add to your platform and expose to your developers. That's a bit incomplete, I think is one way to say it, where that's all the types that you want and it defines your API, but there's always more configuration work, to get your provider configs and maybe environment details and things like that. So it's, you install a configuration, you can kind of get a platform going, but there's more work to do after that, which is a bit of a stumbling block, I suppose, to get a control plane up and running quickly and effectively. So that's Nick has been doing some thinking here around that very topic of how can we extend the crossplane experience to be able to kind of capture sort of initialization sort of details into packages and the configuration experience as well. So it really streamlines what does it take to create a platform and get going and be useful, and kind of remove some of those manual steps that you have now of getting configuration details synced to your platform. So I think that'll definitely help with the general theme of accelerating people's success with Crossplane and getting their platforms up and running. So that'll be a very likely area that we'll be focusing on in 1.16 timeframe. And then I don't know about time for this, but it has been a thorn in the side still for, when you're running Crossplane in production at scale, all that sort of stuff, the having insight and metrics and observability. There's been some great work that, Marcus and Christina and the, observability SIG have been pushing forward. But there's, some more work obviously to do to have more insight to be able to understand what's going on in Crossplane, especially when there are issues. So that could be an area of focus as well that I think has big impact on the ability to be, using Crossplane successfully in production and at scale. So those are the major areas that were, that I think are high priorities for the project, and I think are things that we should be focusing on. There's obviously no shortage of great things to do in Crossplane and things that the community has wanted, things that people have suggested as ideas and ways to continue improving the project. So I think that it's a continued encouragement again here of if folks have features and things that they want to be see more progress being made on, of reaching out, and we could talk about how to get more contributors involved and be driving more things. Anything on people's minds in terms of roadmap and plans and stuff like that that folks wanted to share right now while we have this topic right here in the agenda? Bob, is there anything on your mind as well too for milestones and progress and such?
Not particularly. I am actually kind of interested in the operations functions, which is tagged for the next release after that.
Something
So
you want to
maybe
drive, Bob?
I would certainly be happy to co-pilot. I could consider driving, I guess. It depends on how much code you want me to write, because believe me, you don't want me to write that much code.
I disagree with that, but okay. But yeah, so that's a very super valid, Bob, is I think that is another high impact and useful feature as well. So I'm glad you're validating that now also, because I think that I totally agree. That's one that's kind of near the top of the list too.
Yeah, it's like now that we have composition functions, it's like, boy, there's so much more we could do. And I've actually got a couple of projects coming up that operation functions come to mind as a good solution, but I really need to pick Nick's brain, I think, in terms of how he's envisioning that kind of linking into the rest of the existing structure. So
yeah, it's pretty early. I don't know if I'm envisioning very much yet. But it is pretty high on my list of focus areas that kind of got pretty narrowly trumped by the configuration stuff. So hopefully we'll be kind of up next after that, for me at least.
Sure.
Awesome. Bob, are you going to be in Paris, by the way?
I am not.
Bummer. Okay.
Unless somebody wants to pay for me to go, but
all right. Cool. So yeah, so as always, exciting plans for Crossplane and the direction that we're going in here, and no shortage of cool stuff to keep on building and continuing to improve and move the project forward. Since we hadn't met in a few weeks, there are a number of important releases amongst the provider ecosystem too. The most recent one from, I think, maybe today were releases for provider Kubernetes and provider Helm. Very commonly used providers amongst the ecosystem there. Let me just click on one of them and see if the release notes will be able to help us out here. Yeah, so the big focus here, and maybe I'm going to show it. Yeah, there we go. The big focus of these releases for provider Helm and provider Kubernetes is Hassan rolled up his sleeves and dug into the performance characteristics of these providers, and especially when they are handling thousands of objects. So we saw that when you have these providers handling a lot of objects, and probably provider Helm is worse off in terms of you would hit thresholds or scalability concerns at lower number of objects. But anyways, when these providers handle a lot of objects, it can get to a point where new objects take a long time to be reconciled once they are created later on. So you can see here with some of the performance testing that Hassan was pushing, doing like 10K objects. At a steady state, once you would add a new object after already those 10,000 are reconciled, it would take a number of minutes to be able to get it reconciled and ready. And so Hassan did some testing and tweaking and, got all sorts of, resource utilization graphs and data and such. But the key takeaway here is that from a number of minutes for some of these objects down to, the second time frame. So once that was tested and checked out and verified, we did a release for provider Kubernetes and provider Helm to what we expect to significantly improve the performance of those critical providers there. So we're looking forward to seeing if there's some success stories with that as well, and people seeing some improvements within their control planes too after those the .12 of, what was that? .12 for Kubernetes and .17 for Helm. Cool. A bunch of other awesome provider releases as well. So we can click through on these release notes and repo package pages, let's call them, to check out more details about those. But I really wanted to call the performance improvements out for those two providers. I believe Jean is not on the call tonight. Let me just check to see if I will handle this update. Otherwise, if there's not somebody else better suited that wants to handle it. Okay, I'll go ahead and think I'll take this one too. So yeah, quick update on some provider investments going on. So as we saw, the AWS provider has, get this one here, had its big update to start using, v5 of the underlying Terraform provider. It had all of the upjet architectural improvements to massively improve performance as well. And then provider GCP in the, let's call it the next few weeks, we'll be getting an update as well to start using the v5 version of the underlying Terraform provider. A note here is that the Upbound's providers for the big cloud providers were donated to the Crossplane organization. And so the movement of the rest of those repos into the Crossplane organizations on GitHub will be happening soon as well. And we want to kind of get that finished off and completed. A big note here is that, obviously this is a governance change, or it's going to the ownership of the Crossplane organization, the CNCF and all that stuff. But it's the impact here to adopters is intended to be very, very minimal, in the sense that the API groups don't change. So there's not like a migration that has to be undergone to update all of the objects to point to new locations, etc. So it's mainly the source code moves, but the package and the API groups and that stuff doesn't change, such that it doesn't have to have impact on users performing migrations. And John friendly mentioned that you're more than welcome to reach out to him for further questions on all these topics there. I guess that's kind of in the same spirit too, of just general getting more contributors involved in the project. That's open for providers also. So yeah, feel free to reach out to both me and Sean, I suppose, for getting more involved in the project and contributing and writing code and stuff. All right. Anything else on providers for folks before we move on to the rest of the topics? All right. As usual, we got a bunch of cool content here. There are a number of talks that came up that I wasn't even aware of that folks reached out and shared with us. So there's a couple cool videos in here, folks giving talks on Crossplane. There's obviously a number of blog posts and people writing their experiences as well. So no shortage of content from amongst the community and amongst the ecosystem that people can click through here and read about or watch as they are free. So enjoy those. And, big update here since we met last is that we have formally and officially opened our proposal to graduate Crossplane with the CNCF. So the link is right here. So it's 1254 on the Technical Oversight Committee, the TOC's repo in the CNCF. And so we've done a ton of legwork to get to this place, both for, process wise in terms of documenting and justifying why we believe that we are ready to graduate now. But additionally, the entire community has been doing a ton of work to mature the project and build out the features and really invest in this thing together, right? So thanks for everyone for doing that. And then there's a section here of this PR of, if you haven't already, I bet most people on this call already have, but if you have not already, feel free to show your support on this PR as well, just, adding simple reactions to it. And then if you haven't also added yourself as an adopter, a publicly recognized adopter of the Crossplane project, that door will never close on that. That's always time for people to continue adding themselves there. Part of the news there of continuing to mature and graduate is the announcement as well that there are 2 new members on the steering committee for the project. So both Brian Lindblom and Bob Paddleton are now officially part of the steering committee. And a happy, cheery welcome to both of you all, and we're looking forward to having their insights continue to have impact on the direction and vision, not just the day-to-day decisions, but long-term vision and sustainability and success of the project too. So I don't think Brian's here today, but Bob, super welcome, and congratulations to you specifically.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege.
Awesome. Okay. So then, we had been talking about this a lot before, while leading up to the 1.15 milestone, about the default registry for the package manager changing to the xpackage.upbound.io. We wrote a blog post about that where, the reasons for it and thinking, and then as well as like how to approach this change are in this blog post here and the release notes and all that jazz. But so that we're not going to cover that here necessarily. I think that's already well covered, but I did want to hear from if there were folks on this call, that had upgraded to 1.15 or, had any experience they wanted to, or feedback that they wanted to provide, then that this is a great venue to do that now, if anybody had that feedback. Otherwise, I'll assume that it's going smoothly. And if there are any questions or issues that people run into, feel free to reach out anytime, and we'll make sure that folks are upgrading to 1.15 smoothly. And speaking of upgrades, actually, so a long-standing kind of missing part of the Crossplane docs was around how to upgrade Crossplane. So awesome docs contributor and maintainer Pete. I don't think Pete's on the call today. Pete, if you are, interrupt me at any time. But Pete went ahead and opened a recent PR here to document how, the processes and considerations for upgrading Crossplane. I'm really glad we got this in here because I've kind of wanted this for a while. So super thank you to Pete for doing that. But the thing I wanted to kind of check in with people, because I don't want to miss anything here. I've been thinking of in terms of the mechanical part of the upgrade for Crossplane is, like a Helm chart upgrade, right? I install Crossplane with the Helm chart, I upgrade it with Helm upgrade. I wanted to check in with people to see if there were, or are there other ways that folks are deploying, installing Crossplane and upgrading it over time, besides, Helm upgrade. What are there other ways that people are managing the life cycle of Crossplane?
GitOps.
And like more specifically Crossplane, Crossplane, Carlos, more specifically Carlos,
Argo
how so?
CD, right? Argo CD, and the problem with trying to deploy like provider configs while you're waiting for the pod to come up, and CRDs are not there, so the GitOps will fail, like applying something that the CR doesn't exist, so it takes a while, retrying. So that's the configuring that. I have solved it, but it took a while to get it nailed down to like what are the right configuration settings in Argo CD application to do retries and retries. And after 20 minutes, I come back and then it's green. But it took me a while to just get it deployed. And I'm using Helm charts, and I'm wrapping everything in Helm charts with selecting which provider families do I want. I pass that in as a value. Yeah, everything in Helm charts. I created some Helm wrappers to deploy everything, and then in Argo CD, I write settings. It's a combination of things, but no CLI Helm upgrade. That's not done in production anywhere.
Yeah, and so Carlos, do you does that replace the Helm chart that is published by upstream Crossplane, or does it kind of like you say like a wrapper around that existing, like what?
Oh no,
does the
that one,
mechanism
yeah,
for Crossplane change?
Crossplane upstream is straightforward. It's more dealing with the providers,
Right.
Like I created a Helm chart that you pass in like a Helm chart for a outbound provider AWS, and you pass in the provider configs that you want to create on Bootstrap, the deployment runtime config that matches every provider that family that you're going to install, and then selecting which provider families you want to install. Like all that orchestration was a nightmare. Like nobody sane what I could be able to. It took me like a week or so to figure that out, but because I couldn't find anywhere how to properly install it with Helm.
Got it. Cool. And I think Christina kind of brought this up a couple of community meetings ago, but this like still sounds like an overlapping area with the thinking that Nick is going to be doing on like configuration of the entire control plane. And what does that mean? This sounds like an area to be strongly considering within that design thinking, so that the general theme of capturing everything that your control plane needs to have to run providers and the configuration associated with them and all that jazz, and making sure it's applied successfully and easily and streamlined, sounds like the related topic to Carlos, the experience that you were having to capture all of that stuff and orchestrate it yourself with Helm and Argo.
Yeah, that'll be very helpful. And then updating the docs, I can take a look at the PR.
And it's still early thing. Like there is not yet a design written. Like it's going to be the thinking that Nick is focusing on in like the 1.16 timeframe.
Yeah.
So your input will be pretty useful, I think.
Yeah, and the use cases have for some end users are like they want to using Argo CD and orchestration like Bootstrap a control plane, and that control plane deploys other control planes, and that control plane has a second copy of Crossplane Argo CD that you orchestrate from the first one, and then that one is actually the one doing the deployment. The other clusters Toros down the way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's good. It's an improvement because so people go to the docs and they see like CLI up install, and for people running in production, like what is up install doing is what is like CLI install doing from the CLI is installing these YAML files. But usually they use Helm charts with good settings. And then passing the right resource requests and limits for these pods, right? How do you pass that in? Make it production ready. And
Yep.
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's really useful, Carlos. Thanks, man. All right. So the last thing I had on here was so Keepon Paris is coming up faster than I expected. So it's less than a month away. We had talked about some like all of the talks that got accepted that we'll be focusing on Crossplane. There's a few ones that I did not, I guess since the last time we met, the schedule got announced. So at the Cloud Native Rejects conference, pre-conference before KubeCon, there's a few talks there as well that we'll be focusing on Crossplane. One of them is Stephen is working on, and alongside me to talk about functions there, and then so a couple other ones as well. So lots and lots of opportunities to see talks and get involved in talks there in Paris, both KubeCon and the co-located stuff and Cloud Native Rejects. So otherwise, though, if you are going to be in Paris, feel free to reach out. And it'd be great to meet. It'd be great to hang out. It'd be great to see each other. There's also maybe a party that is getting organized and getting put together that folks on this call we would probably love to have there also. So be on the lookout for that too. That there will be opportunities for us to all hang out together in Paris if you're going to be there. And then we've got the typical maintainer intro deep dive talk. We have a new lightning talk as well that is something we have not done in the past, so that is a cool opportunity as well. And then obviously we'll be at the booth in the project pavilion. One thing to note here is that there appears to have been more demand than ever from all of these CNCF projects for these opportunities. I guess more projects are being accepted to the CNCF, and more people are seeing the value in meeting with the community and hanging out there and getting good feedback and all that sort of stuff. So we do not have a full-time booth in the project pavilion this year at the KubeCon EU. We only have a partial one. That's all that could be accommodated this time by the CNCF and their high demand. So we'll only be there in the afternoon. Unfortunately, there won't be any morning shift presence in a booth or a booth at all from us, actually, because there's no room. And then we don't have a Contrib Fest either, which I'm super disappointed about because I really enjoyed those last couple times and getting on our laptops together in a room and hanging out. So there will not be those opportunities, unfortunately, in Paris. But keep our fingers crossed for Salt Lake City that we'll get to do those again and have more presence there. Hopefully by then we'll be graduated, and they do give more preference to graduated projects. So maybe this won't be a concern for next time. But cool. Okay, well, that's everything I had on the agenda. Was there anything else that folks wanted to bring up while we are all together today? All right, last chance. Cool. Well, all right. If there's nothing else in the agenda that folks wanted to discuss, well, thanks for joining. It was super good to see everybody today. And yeah, we'll get started on 1.16 and all the work we've got going on there over the next few months. Cool. See everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jared. See you.